Before we dive into your creative journey, I'd like to start with the question inspired by Brecht himself. Brecht once said, "Art is not a mirror to reflect reality, but a hammer with which to shape it." How do you view theater in the current circumstances, especially in terms of as a mirror reflecting society or as a hammer shaping it, or a combination of both?
Well, actually, the answer also is related to my own journey from a student political activist to playwright. And I realized that if you have to change the system, you have to change the mindset. And for that, I think stone is not as effective as pen. So I used to literally
Yeah.
throw stones at the police and at the government buildings and literally breaking mirrors or window panes. But then I thought pen will do a better job. So I think
Yeah.
I didn't want to break the mirror or just to reflect the mirror. I think it is beyond the mirror what playwright is looking for. So the reality as we see it and the reality as it should be or it may be. So in that way, we in Ajoka and myself as a playwright, we keep on mixing different forms and different ways of doing theater. We are not committed to one particular school.
Absolutely. So I want to start from the beginning. You were born in Sopore, Kashmir in December 1947 and forced to migrate as a refugee in 1948. How has that early displacement shaped your artistic identity and informed the recurring themes of loss and resistance in your work?
Well, obviously, at the tender age of one, if it had affected me, I would not be aware of it. But I'm told that when we were crossing the pedestrian bridge, rope made bridge from Jammu to Sialkot, and my
Yeah.
mother was carrying my elder brother, sort of holding his hand and carrying me in the lap, while my father was looking after whatever luggage and they could get before hurriedly leaving the Kashmir Valley because of the threats from the pro-India forces. And then a prisoner exchange was taking place at the same time. So some
Oh, wow.
Muslim prisoners were being repatriated to Pakistani side, and one of the prisoners offered to my mother, he saw her discomfort and her problem, to carry me in the lap. While we were crossing the border of India and Pakistan, or Indian Kashmir and Pakistani Kashmir, I was carried by a prisoner and a convict.
Yeah.
And this relationship has gone on. I had been in prison. I had spent time as an inmate of prison with other convicts of all kind of crimes they were supposed to have committed. So in that way, I think the relationship which was established at that critical juncture has gone on till today. And then I joined Amnesty International. I worked for political prisoners all over the world. And
Mm.
very recently, I have written a letter to, an article for an Italian paper focusing on prison life, about my prison experiences.
Yeah.
So my hide and seek with the prisons goes
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. In your plays like Doba Tek Singh and Udan Hare, partition is portrayed not as a closed chapter, but as an ongoing trauma. Do you think these experiences when did you first feel compelled to bring these narratives to stage? But could you describe a specific scene, perhaps, about the division or the trauma of partition? Uh,
Right. Well, I mean, my father was from Kashmir, and all his relatives they stayed back in Kashmir. Only he moved to Pakistan, and my mother was a Punjabi Kashmiri based in Lahore.
yeah.
So, having no paternal relatives with me, and we reconnected with them after a very long time, maybe 30 years or so, that obviously had an impact.
Yeah.
Secondly, I was in my childhood. I was living in Batapur, which is right on the border of India and Pakistan near Wagah. My father was the medical officer of the Bata Pur, Bata Shoe Company. And 1965 happened when I was there, and this Indian invasion, and they almost came very close to Lahore and Batapur. The canal near Batapur was, in fact, the border where they kind of were stopped. So at
Mm,
that time, as a Pakistani nationalist, I used to shout slogans, "Crush India" or "Ganjang India," the Indonesian term which President Soeharto, the great Indonesian leader, he had given us during those times. He was a great supporter of Pakistani side. So, but then I moved on as a student, from school to college, and then I was exposed to progressive ideas and progressive thought, and that was late is when a revolution, youth revolution, was taking place all over the world, including the West and the third world
mm,
countries. So then
yeah.
gradually my attitude towards India or towards Indians started changing. And my mentors, political mentors, played a role in that. My studies and my reading of books and getting to more of Indian history, pre-Pakistan Indian history. I think that gradually changed my mind. I became a socialist, and I think socialists are invariably for peace and for human rights. So then I first I wrote a short story about the bombs, unexploded bombs in the border areas, without referring to which side they were on. Like Manto, I also didn't want to take any sides. The concept was the bombs had damaged the mother earth, and in the end, this child takes out the unexploded bomb, and the mother earth says, "Thank you, son." So gradually, then I moved on. Then I discovered Manto, and then I got involved with political and cultural activities. Writers Association called Halka Erbab-e-Zauk, joined Pakistan Television. So by that time, it had been a 360 turn, and I was now all for peace. I still, Kashmir was a stumbling block. I couldn't accept Kashmir being occupied against the will of the majority of its people. But otherwise, my approach towards India, especially northern India, Punjab, where we share so much of culture, history, language, art, um, and then the first play, I think I had some dramatic readings of Manto's short stories, Toba Tek Singh, Akhri Salute, and Titwal Ka Kutta. And where again, it was basically Manto who inspired us, along with writers
Mhm,
like Christian Chandra Bedi. But Manto was a great influence.
mhm,
And then a lot of my work became influenced by the partition trauma or the partition agenda or the baggage which we still carry. And then I think six or seven of my plays exclusively deal with partition. Anni Maida Supana is one, which is about people who were left behind during the partition and mass exodus. And then Ek Thi Nani, about two sisters who were
mhm,
separated by partition, and how they meet and how they reunite and rediscover their legacy. And then
yeah.
Manto, the story of Manto from partition, from his migration to Pakistan till his end, which then was converted into a television serial and the film Manto. So I think partition has been a major subject for my plays and for Ajoka.
Yes. So I just had a quick question. At Punjab University, I know during that period, the psychology department was very influential. And you ended up studying psychology at Punjab University. Can you tell about how that influenced your work on a certain level, whether it gave you insight into human psychology or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I joined after graduating from Government College, Lahore. I then joined Punjab University Applied Psychology Department, and it was in the new campus. And the new campus was really new in those days. It was late 60s we are talking about.
Yeah,
And it was a
yeah,
beautiful area, and it was not contaminated by the Jamaat-e-Islami uh, kind of pressures and dictates. And it was more liberated. And my department, applied psychology, I think 70% were girls. And that was obviously very influential, not only in my uh, kind of getting to know the opposite gender, because in government college at that time, there were hardly any girl students. So, but also,
yeah.
I don't know whether there is a psychological connection. I became very active socially, politically, as president of the Applied Psychology Students Association, president of the Punjab University Literary Forum, as a short story writer. And then I wrote my first play, Maria Hoya Kutta, while I was a student there. But apart from that, I got very actively involved in the movement against General Ayub Khan and General Yahya Khan while I was there. And that's when I was
Yeah.
arrested twice, first by the Ayub Khan government, then by Yahya Khan government. And this was really something which kind of gave a lot of to the anti-dictatorship movement that time.
So during that period, you also encountered the professors group, which is sort of led by Dr. Azizuddin, uh, and you participate in the Bhakti House sort of milieu, intellectual milieu. And how were your exchanges, like intellectual exchanges? How did they shape your sort of perspective on theater and your commitment towards using theater as a means for social change?
Well, there were two mentors. One was Professor Azizuddin, the other was Dr. Azizul Haq. So,
Azizul Haq.
yeah. And then there were two organizations, left organizations. One was National Students Federation, the other one was National Students Organization,
Organization.
NSF and NSO.
Yeah,
So I was more in touch with Dr. Azizul Haq and National Students Federation, which was a nationwide left-wing students body.
yeah,
And they used to, Professor Aziz was a teacher at the campus, but Dr. Azizul Haq was actually a scientist who was working for the PCSIR, the scientific uh, laboratory. And he
yeah,
used to come and spend time with us in the new campus. And the new campus, as I said, was quite a liberal place at those times, and the dialogues and the interaction, it was quite free. So there I was exposed to an idea of how cultural action can be a part of the socialist struggle.
yeah,
And Dr. Azizul Haq was remarkable in his approach towards revolution, not towards socialism. It was
yeah,
like total change, not only in society, but in your person also, your family life, your psychological makeup, and your
yeah,
political and cultural life. So he believed that it all should be consistent, and a socialist has to be socialist in the true sense of the word, partner, as a husband, as a son, as an activist. So
yeah,
I was very much, he was quite a charismatic person, and I was very inspired by him and became quite active in the left students' politics. But unfortunately, he died in very tragic circumstances, very young man, but he really was at his intellectual peak, and he was really gaining popularity among the students. And very crucial time. This was when Bangladesh was created, and he was one of the few voices who were against army action in Bangladesh and totally showing
Mhm.
solidarity with the people of East Pakistan, now uh, being called Bangladesh. So that romance
Can you
got cut off.
can you tell a little bit about how he passed away or what actually took place during that period?
Yeah, it was very strange and quite shocking. He was regarded very highly as a great teacher by everyone, including female students or female activists of our group. And one of them, Rabia, was married to an industrialist who had some, not just he
Mhm.
was an industrialist, which is Malays in itself. Also psychologically disturbed. And at some point, he was kind of suppressing his frustration or his anger. And at one point, when we had returned from a political meeting in Lailpur, Faisalabad, and came back, six or seven of us, and he was waiting, and he just shot his wife and Dr. Aziz. Dr. Aziz expired and Rabia survived, and a bullet was left in her body all her life. She recently, like 2 months ago, she passed away.
Oh,
I ended up marrying Rabia. So she was my first wife, and I had two kids from her. And she was a great comrade and also an intellectual and person of great dignity and high moral values.
yeah,
So it was just quite unbelievable. Still, we can't believe how this thing happened. He killed himself also, the husband, Saif Khan. So only Rabia survived. And there was absolutely no reason for him to take such a drastic action.